and welcome back to another episode of the Unfounded Podcast, everyone. My name is Christopher Turner, and I am your host. But today is kind of a special episode because I have somebody joining me. Like I said before, I've been trying to get more people on here to kind of engage in some different perspectives, kind of expand on the ideas I've talked about, but see how other people view it or how they want to play with these ideas. And I'm thinking that's kind of how we're going to go to a higher level with it, if that makes sense. So, without further ado, my good friend Shane Way, say hi.
What's going on, Chris? Thanks for having me over, and I'm glad we're finally getting a chance to sit down and talk and listen to ourselves talk.
No kidding, man. Like we've been talking about this for a month, 2 months at the most.
Yeah.
And it's kind of an odd story how we came back in contact. You know, I was just thinking about this the other day. That it's I've talked about it in the last episode that there's certain individuals that you come in contact with in your life that have an impact on you, and it's hard to describe why. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, and it's actually been a kind of like a common theme for me this year already, like we've been talking about. You know, just how people kind of come in and out of your life. Some people are there for moments. Some people are there for chapters, and other people, it seems, are there for you for life. You know, whether they are coming and going. There's some people that seem to connect with you, you know, for more of a permanent position in your life.
It's more substantial.
Yeah.
There's something about the connection that you can kind of tell in the moment when you come in contact with these people that there's something different about them. It's maybe a little bit of a mirror image of yourself in the person, I think, is kind of what I recognize. And
I think it's also something that just kind of sometimes that even without feeling like that from the get-go, you kind of catch yourself saying, oh, I feel like we never get to see each other, and then whenever we do, it's like we pick up where we left off.
Yeah.
I've heard other people say that to their friends, and I think that it's something that we all kind of come across, but we don't always stop and recognize it or see it for what it is. Yeah,
we overlook these kind of things because they're subtle. They're not always, they don't jump out at you right away. The people, I think in general, most people don't think at this micro scale when they're talking about individuals. They don't try to or maybe it's not even a micro scale, it's a macro scale. Like they don't try to segment out their relationships and try to define, hey, what at a deeper level, what do you mean to me?
Yeah.
Kind of a thing, right? And I think in some ways it speaks of kind of the social dynamics, kind of the way that our society itself kind of operates at this shallow surface level.
This accelerated, you know, gotta go to work to make money, gotta get off of work to go, you know, pick up the kids from school, or gotta get over here, or gotta make these plans so that I can accomplish this. And it seems like everybody's, you know, caught up.
Yeah. In like the rat race.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? On this wheel of life that we all seem to at some point jump on, but can never determine when that happens. And all of a sudden you're just running. And I think a lot of people feel tired. You know, they get tired, and they don't know. It's not a physical kind of tired. It's an emotional kind of tired, right? It's like a deep soul tired. And I've talked about this a lot in the podcast too, that I think that this speaks of something like a disconnection between the individual I differentiate the individual, segment it into two different things, basically. Like the avatar you, the physical you, it's kind of associated with, I would say, your limbic system, kind of the emotions, your nervous system, everything you feel, and the physical world. But then there's this deeper you, that's something that's inside, or not even necessarily inside you. It's something that's kind of embodies you.
And I think that's the voice that you know, catches you, and I think it catches people at different times, or sometimes it, you know, never catches them. But you know, and I feel like those are the people that, you know, maybe don't feel like they're fulfilling their purpose, or but I think that kind of what you're talking about with the two different beings is kind of like your physical self and then your conscience, or you know, and not to overgeneralize that, but
no, I agree. Well, it's hard. It's a hard concept too, because I've struggled with the idea of your conscience being you or being God.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's this idea of God being the moral being. and kind of having this overarching sight where because you are God in some way, like it's you can't hide anything from him or her, right? So it's this idea of trying to. Is your conscience influenced by your physical avatar? I guess is what it's your logical mind.
Is our subconscious or our conscience, is it influencing us, or are we influencing it? And
yes.
Are we, then where you tie in God to it, if you're talking about, asking that question, I think that also starts to make people then question themselves, or them question, okay, well, if there's such thing as fate or destiny, or if we have a predisposition to be some way, or we have a predetermined path, then I think that can also cause you to start to question, well, do I really have free will, or do I have, am I just going through? And I think that a lot of people come across that as like, is this fate, or can I determine this? And then that can then get you caught into, can I turn this thing around? I think that's kind of where I'm at right now, is I'm actually seeing for the first time in a while that I can take control of my self and my happiness and my fears and my insecurities, and I'm not stuck. You're not a victim, right? That you're the thing that actually controls you. You're the only thing that controls you. And that there's something, I don't know if you found this, but and it's fascinating thing is how different people's struggles are, how different people's suffering is, right? How it manifests in everybody's life so individually, but there is a similarity in what it calls out in the individual, and it's something like the higher version of them, and the hero in them, right? You see it in all of those Disney movies. It's why they resonate with you so much. I'm curious, actually, is there a certain Disney movie that like resonated with you more as a kid, or did you watch them at all? Yeah. It's weird that I don't know if this is the one I would really say that I would
Sorry to put you on
say.
the spot.
But what immediately popped to my mind is The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Really?
Yeah.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
I've never had anybody say that, and I love The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I'm curious, do you know why? Have you thought about why ever?
I don't know. Probably because my dad's side of the family comes from Hungary, and they were gypsies.
Line, okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So it resonates with you at that level. Something that speaks to your ancestral line, right?
Yeah. And he was the underdog. Quasimodo was the underdog.
Absolutely.
But he didn't get the girl.
That's an interesting differentiation too. He doesn't get the girl.
Yeah.
But he does get the girl in a different way. He doesn't get the girl in like a romantic way, but he does get her in kind of the total love way.
Yeah, the companion and the they put their lives on the line for each other. That's kind of funny.
It's a very interesting kind of. I find that it's fascinating and I've said this before to a lot of the listeners, but if you are listening right now and you're like, oh, I wonder what mine is, think about it and ask yourself those same questions. What about that movie makes me so attracted to it? Because you'll find there's this massive wealth of like wisdom built into those movies.
I don't think it typically is the response is typically gonna be like, oh, it just makes me feel good because it was a happy ending, or it was just happy.
Is that I think surface level.
Yeah, I think if you take a second look at anything that you're attracted to like that, something so with such fond memories, like the childhood movies we think of, I think you probably can find some deeper meaning in your life while you still reflect or still relate to that. Yeah.
You'll always find it too. It's similar. I find a similar experience to what I find when I go to church, oddly enough, when I think about those stories. And because I think there's a reason for that. I think it's because the metaphors function in a similar way. That the stories that we read about in the Bible, or really any religious text, even if you go to kind of the Hindu Vedas, or if you go into like the Buddhist mantras, things like that. That's not the right way to put it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. If you look at all the religious texts, you'll find this similarity in the message that comes through it, and it's something. It's a method. Each of them are kind of different perspectives on the method of pulling out the hero in the individual, the highest version of them.
Yeah,
and they all go about it from a slightly different angle, something like that, right?
Yeah.
But I find that you don't even have to look at religious texts to find that. You can look at secular, like apparently secular works of art, right? Like the Disney movies,
or people themselves,
or people themselves.
There's And guys, I know this might all sound might sound a little crazy the way we jumped into this, but Chris and I have been kind of connecting on a few different levels, and we've kind of started a lot of these conversations. So
yeah.
But yeah, I think that sorry, I caused myself to lose my train.
You're fine. No, I'll pick up where you left off there. I think it matters for some reason. We were talking about this before we got on the podcast to kind of explain how we met each other, and kind of describe for people that recognizing, I think, the higher self in somebody else, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah. Or what I was saying is looking at people themselves. We were comparing it to works of art or movies, and why we connect with these things on such a deeper level. You look at people and the stories and the life experiences they have.
Yeah.
And then, when you come back to each other or somebody comes in your life, then you look at that person and say, man, like, this dude gets me, or this, this person is, walking the same path as me. And I think that's it's kind of just an interesting way, friends or family or, just anybody, even the person you just bump into at the store or something, they play such a huge role in our lives.
Yeah. You don't want to miss anything.
Yeah. Even if it's for that minute, those conversations, those thoughts that we have and everything, the importance and the significance that those make to us in those instances. It's kind of crazy.
It is, because you don't always meet the people in the most ideal situations.
No.
Right? Like, for instance, when I met Shane, I was coming out of, as I've described for you guys, I was kind of in the middle of my dark night of the soul. I had just been kicked out of the military about a year or two prior. I was living with some friends, but the environment itself wasn't the most healthy. I had been doing a variety of different drugs heavily, addicted to pretty much all of them. I was doing some things right, like trying to go to school, but in this mix, this kind of shadow or dark night of the soul, I found a job working at a place called Bullshooters. It's a big, actually, a very large pool hall here in Phoenix, and a dart place you can play darts as well. But anyway, I got a job working for my friend Jamie there, doing bar backing and security. And this is where I met Shane. Right?
Yeah. And I had only been there for, I think, just a couple months prior to that. But and it was funny because I was also going through, at that point in my life, I was going through a huge transition period. I had actually just transferred colleges. I had left New Mexico State University, where I had originally gone to play college football, and ended up getting injured, tearing up my knee there, and then going through probably one of the darkest times of my life of depression and sadness and insecurity from pretty much losing what I had made so dear to me for a long time. It was a huge part of my life.
Your dream.
Yeah. So when I had met Chris and actually been working at Bullshooters, I had I was honestly on the verge of dropping out at Arizona State University, where I was pretty much just going to school without a purpose. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I needed to try to finish school. I wasn't able to play football anymore because I was no longer able to make that the center point of my life. I had to kind of start paying bills and start doing things like that, and it just kind of got pushed to the sideline.
Life hit you.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
and that happens for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we were at we were at Bullshooters, that was a huge transition period, and it's funny because it's kind of fast forward. That's kind of where we are now. I feel like we're both at another little fork in the road in our
Crossroads.
lives. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Those moments, they stick out. I was just talking about that last episode, the crossroad moments. You come up to these moments in your life where you can feel there's a different presence, there's a different energy to it, and it's something like a gravity. It's something like, oh shit, this is important. I don't know why, but it's important. Yeah. And you can identify it by having a certain amount of uncertainty in the road ahead, and it demands a type of choice in a crossroads moment. And that's the odd thing, what you just pointed out there. I hadn't really thought about it in that context, but that's why it's so fascinating to reconnect with people, is like, yes, you're right. That's exactly what this moment is here too, and that's exactly what it was back then, was crossroad moments. We were at a point in our lives where we could choose to go up or down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In a very serious way, because we were surrounded in that environment by
chaos.
The kind of chaos that most people don't experience.
Yeah.
And to describe to you that, I guess I don't know really how to start to describe the environment of bullshooters, right?
Yeah, it's
anytime
Bullshooters is an incredible place,
yes.
man. If you're looking for just an awesome bar, restaurant, great food, cheap, fun place to go. You can bring family, all types of crazy.
There's more pool tables there than any place in the entire state. Like, it's huge.
It is a neighborhood bar.
Yes,
it is a neighborhood bar.
Through and through.
Yeah.
It's like a big hole in the wall bar, if you can imagine that.
It's like it's like a hole. It's a hole in the wall neighborhood bar the size of a Toys R Us.
Yeah, exactly. And shout out also to Jamie Bates and Mike Bates and all the crew out there, man. Like, I honestly, and I love, because everything we're going to talk about here, like, I want to say from the get-go, I absolutely loved my time working at Bullshooters. I loved every single person I met there.
Everybody.
It was like I was saying, one of the darker times of my life, but at the same time, oddly enough, one of the funnest times I've ever had in my life as well. Yeah. And one of the times where I've made some of the deepest connections I've ever made in my life as well. So, that being said, though, it is an environment, like Shane was getting into, that is kind of hole in the wall. It's in a part of Phoenix where, you can get basically any crowd, and I mean any crowd. Like, you can get families, like Shane was describing, but you can get all the way to some pretty serious gang related kind of stuff going on there, right? So, and it's not anything reflecting on the bar. It's just kind of the environment in which it operates, something like that, right? So, so this is why there's a necessity for security. Right?
Every neighborhood has their own personality.
Exactly.
This one had a lot of personality.
A variety of personalities. Yeah. So anyway, to kind of describe what me and Shane did, like I said, we were bar back, so a lot of the time we were behind the bar and we're cleaning dishes and talking to people and even pouring drinks sometimes, things like that. But really the most important part of our job was the security side. And so we would do ID checks, things like that. It
was a huge bar where even on a slow night, when you come in and it looks dead, we'd have 50 to 100 people in there very easily, and it would look slow. But something like 50 pool tables in there, or 60 pool tables in there, and 30 dartboards or so it's a big place, and you might be in there on an odd night where it's one door person who's also working as a bar back, and one or two bartenders. Yeah,
you're shorthanded, and you don't
no
have
servers
else.
Or one server if that.
And a lot of times, that's why it's a big shout out to Mike and all the dart players, because they were a big part of that security team. Even though they didn't get paid, they would help out a lot. Right?
The community and the family of guests that used to come through there was awesome. It was you had to go through almost like what felt like a little bit of not a hazing process, but if you came in there with the wrong personality and thought you were gonna push around some of the regulars, you might get into an argument or two.
First of all, you had to have some balls, because there's some big boys, right?
Those dart players, man, those guys. They make the college football players look small.
Yeah,
so.
They make the ground shake, man.
Yeah,
but also, like I said, some of the nicest guys I've ever met.
Yeah, and you definitely wanted to have their respect, and you definitely wanted them to have your back if something ever popped off, because it's a community of all sorts there, and something that we kind of overlooked, or something that I felt like we became oddly comfortable with there was a little bit of chaos. And if you stopped and put it into perspective, and sometimes it was Jamie or somebody coming and getting our attention after maybe a fight or somebody had to get escorted out, that you stop and realize, oh, it's just me and one other person here. And if I let somebody get the upper hand, it puts a lot of puts a lot at risk.
It's the first time, not the first time, but it is kind of the time that sticks out in my head when I think about being put in those fight or flight moments, right? Because that's what you're referring to there. Is there's a lot of times, like he was describing, where you'd have 30 people in there and you're shorthanded and you're the only security dude, and you have, sometimes you have some sketchy folks going through there, right? Some people that you don't want to tangle the wrong way with. So first of all, you have to figure out how to talk to those people in a proper way. Certain amount of respect you have to lend everybody you talk to, right?
Yeah, and those are those crucial people skills that we not enough people know nowadays, as far as shaking somebody's hand, looking them in the eyes.
Even more so, we're not massive dudes either.
No.
We're good sized guys, but we're not massive. We're not going to scare anybody with our size.
I was just a skinny fat guy with a really nice beard. And
very nice beard, by the way. Best beard I've ever seen. Shane's the guy that got me into growing beards. So like, anybody needs some advice, hit Shane up for sure.
There it is.
There it is.
And I mean, there was some spots, man, where you got in some sketchy spots. I only got in like really that one main one, two main ones, but you got in some pretty sketchy spots. I remember you telling me about that. Yeah.
It's just, I don't know whether you want to go into details of those or not, but it's one of those things, like I said, referring to the fight or flight moments where it calls out in you something like the primal you, right?
Yeah.
And it shows you whether you're that thing or not, and whether you can control that thing or not, something like that.
Well, yeah, and I'm going to actually tie into somebody that I think would be awesome to bring on this podcast one day, because that guy's a storybook in himself, is Andy.
Yep.
Andy, man, I gotta reconnect with him now that I'm actually out here close enough to see him.
Shout out to him.
I just moved back to Arizona, by the way, from Texas. So, but Andy, man, that's a guy that in those fight or flight moments, that's the guy behind the bar. Looks like the kid from Stuart Little.
Yeah.
But about the baddest dude in the world.
No shit.
And definitely the guy behind the bar you want to have your back. Yeah. But
and Steve as well.
Yeah, Steve as well. There's a lot of times though where before, when I first started there, before I would even get into those situations where I was escorting people out or asking people to leave or picking up drinks at the end of the night, I would usually look for his approval, because I didn't want to jump the gun, and I know how easy it is to go from the respected, I don't want to say person in charge, but like the authoritative figure.
Yes.
You're the sober mind. You're the sober mind in a room full of people that are been drinking and having a good time. So,
there's a responsibility.
You definitely, you don't want to jump the gun and escalate anything, because, like I said, you can put somebody in harm's way.
Yep. And that's why it is like a last resort. That's one thing that I really found I developed in myself there, and I prided myself on there, was de-escalation.
Oh yeah,
right? And working with people.
Chris could talk people out of there better than anybody. And usually, if I looked around and Chris or Andy was there, I knew that I was going to have a chill night, because they both knew when to pull the trigger, as far as
when to escalate it and when to not.
when to kick it into high gear and when to relax.
Yep. Exactly right. And that's it's one of those things that I hear people talk a lot about fighting, right? And especially we had fight nights, UFC fight nights, and every night there was a fight night, somebody's fighting, right? Because it just gets in your blood. People have this primal thing that kind of sits inside of them that they don't recognize, and because of that, when something kind of itches it a little bit or like pokes it a little bit, they want to let it out, and it feels good.
Being at a neighborhood bar, or being at a pool hall, when you got that competition, you got just a lot of big energy around you. I think that it's kind of like same kind of energy you pick up when you're walking around a weight room.
Yep. Exactly.
Not by the machines, not by the cables, but by like the by the free weights.
Yeah.
That's the same type of energy you pick up. The only difference is that energy is amplified because you got add alcohol and whatever else is in everybody's system at the bar. So
judgment's out the window now.
Yeah.
Yep.
People are nice and warmed up. They're feeling strong. So
yeah. But there was always something, and this is kind of why I brought it up and why I think we were talking about the history of meeting up with shooters is in describing the environment in this way, is because there was something about the environment that was fairly chaotic, right? It was by nature. And I've always questioned myself, well, why did I end up in that spot in a kind of a chaos there? when I was kind of at a spot where I was at my lowest in some senses. And the answer I've come up with is something like, that's where you do end up when you're at your lowest, because that's what enables the thing that's greater in you to come out. It's like you don't know what you are until you've gone to certain places, if that makes sense, and it's been tested or called out in you.
The other thing is, I think that everything's chaotic. Like,
I
agree. Yeah. I agree with everything you just said, except then I fast forward and I work in the oil field, where it's the same. Same energy. You got a lot of testosterone and just people running on no sleep and high energy and high caffeinated and not enough nicotine, and
because you're the thing that knows it. That's what I'm saying. Is like the reason that you're in that environment is because you're the kind of thing that knows how to pull order out of chaos, because you have experience with it. Yeah. You have a spirit. You've seen the darkest side of it, which is that violent thing that will come out of people. You've dealt with that over and over throughout your life. And so one of the aspects of I from my perspective that I see in that job, and why you would be in a chaotic position still, isn't necessarily like I just said, like it's only because you're at a rock bottom in your life. No,
I hear and I know where you're coming from too, because me better than a lot of people do. You also know a little bit about my upbringing and just a lot about me. So I totally hear where you're putting that observation out there too.
But anyway, I think that there's something that I noticed in you while I was working with you in those kind of edgy situations and environments that spoke to kind of, or showed me that there was something, I guess the best way to describe it was deeply principled about you. And I've found throughout my life that people that operate on something like a deep belief or faith or principle, not only are they more stable throughout their life, but they're the kind of thing that people tend to follow because they exude a certain type of grace, because they're following something that isn't external, right?
It's funny that you use the word grace, because that's by word specifically is grace is what I've been praying for out loud. Over, I'd say probably the past 6 months is just handling the internal conversation, handling it with grace, making everything I do have a little more intention, and putting a little more intention in behind it. So, obviously I don't want to be. It's funny that you say that. It's funny that you use the word grace.
I think that what you're getting at there too is kind of at a fundamental level. If you ever are experiencing any form of suffering, one of the ways that you can kind of experience the grace of God or whatever you believe in is through focusing on, oddly enough, the most ridiculous tasks, like the things that you usually write off. The stuff that you don't usually do with all your intent, if you focus on those things with all your intent and you put everything you have into it, for some reason, it demonstrates at a fundamental level what you are. And you are the thing that does that is able to take something that is by nature operating under the law of entropy, right? That is going from a state of order to chaos. But you're the thing that can take that chaotic soup and just at the simplest level. And if you demonstrate that over and over to yourself at a simplest level, then what it does is shows, I have something to build on here, and I can expand that idea out. And then once you get to the larger ideas, larger concepts, they're not as overwhelming, and you can still operate with that grace you're talking about, right?
Like, yeah. And I kind of feel like you're getting ready to touch on a lot of points again. I feel like you and I just keep.
We're resonating.
We're resonating. Yeah,
and if you guys are listening, this is what happens when you really connect with somebody. Is there's a way that it'll pull you out of yourself, and it's uncomfortable in some ways too, right? Like, because it's something like
we want to hold on to the steering wheel.
Yes,
we want to hold on to the steering wheel. I keep feeling compelled to be like, let's finish the story on how Chris and I met. However, I know that right now he just knows where I'm at. Mentally and emotionally, and it's just odd. Again, this crossroads that we've kind of bumped back into each other is crazy, man. It's really, really crazy the way we've been we're in this transition period together right now. So
there's a time dilation effect that's happening right now too that I like to point out, because when you meet, when you have these experiences with people where you have this kind of deeper connection, this resonance where, like I said, it kind of pulls you out of yourselves, what you'll notice is like the time kind of changes and shifts a little bit, and if you have to really kind of focus on it. But like you'll either experience kind of a lack of noticing time where it flies by as if it's speeding up, or you'll notice it like freeze. And I think what that demonstrates too is the fact that time doesn't exist. That time is something that is all in your head. Me and you and everybody else here. It's something that we create. It's not even that we create it. It's literally a byproduct of perspective. Being placed, taking something infinite, right? Your soul, your higher self, and placing it in a finite space, constricting it, produces something like linear thought or linear vision, and outward in vision.
That same perspective is also what I keep using kind of as my mantra for this this year. I say this year, but I started saying it at probably, I don't know, 2-3 months back. I caught myself just kind of saying it in my head while I was at work. And if anybody's that's listening has worked in the oil field, you'll know that, or any type of industry like that, it's loud all the time. So even though I'm, I may be surrounded by people, or I might be working in a trailer, you're alone. You're alone out there just in your thoughts. You're alone. You have a lot of time out there. 12, 15, 17, 18 hour shifts. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you don't even drive into town other than to stop at the gas station before you go to and from work. But you have very little human interaction out there other than like the guys that, just while you're driving in the pickup truck, and usually I'm sleeping while somebody's driving or, because but you're just alone out there with your thoughts. And that's when I started telling myself, because some days just seem long. Some days, man, it's only 9 o'clock. I used to joke around and say it doesn't matter what time of day you look at the clock, it's going to say 9, which means you're not even halfway through your shift. It's quickest way to slow time down. Look at the clock. But I caught myself, and it was those days that I would remind myself not just to stop and be appreciative, or not just to stop and say, thank you, God, for this opportunity. Thank you for being able to provide for my family. Thank you for, man, I get to see the sun come up and the sun go down every single day. But I would remind myself, like, Shane, pick your freaking shoulders up. Your back hurts because you're slouching. Your back's not hurt because you're tired. Your back's, you're not dead. You're not freaking, even us, there are quite a few jobs, and I've done them in the oil field, where you get to sit, watch Netflix for 4 to 6 hours. You see a lot of memes talking about guys in the oil field. Just you got your easy days in the oil field are very easy. This work I've been doing for the past year, doing wireline and doing 6 to 10 stages a shift. You don't get time to sleep. So
that's long hours.
You start getting tired, and
9 hours.
You start getting tired, and you start making excuses to be lazy. You start making excuses to cut corners. You start making excuses for your back hurting. You start making excuses to be depressed or sad, or but man, if you just freaking throw your shoulders back and tell yourself, walk with intention. Put every step I take. One step might feel heavy because my boots are covered in mud, or like past couple weeks, ice and snow and stuff and slush. But just walk with intention. Make it, put some damn thought. Don't be complacent. And that's become my mantra for 2021, man. And it's weird because I am feeling every hour and every second. And I always thought that I was busy, I worked 18 hours or, but what was I doing when I was sitting down? The past couple months, we've been working out. We've been working out our whole shift in between our before and after we pick up. We've been getting 25 push-ups in before and after every time we lay down. And that's the intention that has already started to just energize my life. And it's lit,
that fire,
100%. It's lit that fire, and it's lit it in my mind, my body, my soul. I feel energized. I feel alert. I'm happy. I don't want to get too much into what's going on in my personal life, but
Just say you're dealing with some stuff.
I'm dealing with a lot of stuff, and right now it's weird because I feel like a physical chapter, a physical time, physical moment is
it's tangible.
Literally
it's something tangible.
Yeah, it's literally I've flipped that page,
and you can feel that.
100%.
That transition is so weird, isn't
100%.
it?
It's oh man,
like you're waking up or something.
Yeah. It's like the fog's cleared. The fog's cleared out, and man,
yeah. Because, and this actually leads me to, I didn't really do it at the beginning, but this is kind of a segue here. At the end of the podcast here, I'm going to be starting to incorporate a little bit of tarot cards, and I'll do a little more description at the end here. But what Shane's describing, and this is something that I'll talk about more, is something like the awakening process, I think, from what I can hear, right? This, it's something like going through the struggles of your life and the hardships in your life, your eyes are opening up to something like the true you, which is that you are the things that hold you back are you. If that makes sense. Am I getting onto something right there?
I think 100%. I think kind of like what we've been talking about also off the podcast is there's, call it by any name, this awakening, this burst of energy, this internal revolution, this this,
it's a beautiful way to put it.
I don't know, whatever it is, you can call it by a lot of different things. I think that it is real. I think it's like a real tangible thing, and I think that it's not by, personally, I don't think it's fate. I don't think it's grand design, but I think that 100% there's a actual purpose in what's going on.
Yeah.
Right now in my life, in Chris's life, why our paths have crossed again, and
you can hear it right now.
Yeah.
As an example of it.
Well, yeah, 100%.
And that's what's kind of fascinating about this process, but there's something I wanted to key on what you were talking about there, and I'm trying to pick it out because I almost lost it. Anyway, there is something deeply necessary about the pain that you experience in your life, right? And the hardest times to recognize that pain is when you're in the middle of that shit. You know what I mean? Because what you're going to feel when you're in the middle of that kind of hell of sorts, I think that's the best way to describe it, is something like the animal inside of you tearing and clawing and ripping and trying its best to try to take over and possess you in a certain type of way. I
appreciate you bringing that up, because that's something I've been saying, and part of me has been saying it as like to somebody just hearing me. I tend to say things in jest, and kind of laugh, but people that know me, they know that I kind of have I don't know what you would call it, a code of ethics, or my own personal morals and beliefs that tie together with, there's a lot of common narratives, respect and loyalty and things, and responsibility, and I pride myself on just having just being rooted in holding myself up to my word, and holding my word, trying to be honorable and
honor. And that's so weird. Just saying, honoring yourself, I think that's what you're doing when you do that. And that's a weird thing, because we always think about it the opposite way. You're honoring other people by acting in an honorable way, but that's actually not true. You're honoring your higher self, because that is the higher self. The perfect thing you can imagine of you is you. The only thing that stands in the way of that is this avatar, is the ego, is what we think we are. And so it's something like deconstructing that thing. And I think that's what you've been describing, is like that cloud, that haziness falling away, is something like the weight that is accumulated with that mask that we wear. And it's, everybody wears them. And there's also an important point to point out here too, is that the point is not to eliminate the mask, because it is associated with your physical experience. So it's But you do have to figure out a way to interplay with it, that when it's necessary and when it's not, and to know that it is not you. So you can watch that fucking thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's where
Yeah.
And I apologize. I lost. I'm still getting used to hearing myself in my ears. So I've been tending to lose my train of thought there. But you were talking about the inner beast and the inner demon. And I say things like that in jest. And a lot of my buddies, they hear me and they're like, and I'm like, oh, dude, feel like that freaking demon's coming out of me.
Yeah.
But anybody that knows me and anybody knows that when I say that stuff, I'm connecting to an old. I mean, like I used to pride myself on being the nastiest, meanest, scariest linebacker I could be on the field, and my dad messed me up as a kid and turned me into freaking highly motivated, crime mob listening, Miami-Dade kid that just liked to scrap and freaking hit people. So,
well, it's funny you say that.
But now as I've been focusing on myself and living with this intention, man, I'm not tired at the end of the day. 5, 6 o'clock, man, Chris and I go to the gym and we catch ourselves working out for 4 hours like some damn savages. No shit. and that's the beast, man. That's the demon that sometimes I catch myself with restless leg syndrome, or I'm sitting there and I catch myself getting anxious at the house now, and I'm like, man, I'm stressing. I don't want to stress, so let me just go beat the hell out of some weights and make myself hurt with these things,
Found that healthy outlet for it, right?
It's definitely a healthy outlet. Like we were saying, we got to keep things in moderation and keep things in perspective. But man, I don't see anything. I mean, everything. I just feel so good right now.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like I'm freaking, like a Mario Kart back in the day. You go off the course, and what happens? Your little freaking go-kart gets up. No. Well, first it starts getting slow. And what happens? You keep going, you go out of bounds, and your guardian angel throws you back on track. But if you catch yourself and you get off the sand and you pull right back onto your turn, all of a sudden things start running smoothly again. You're back in the race. And that's how I feel right now. I feel fired up like I'm back in the race, dude.
That was the dopest analogy ever, dude. I love it.
It is.
Because it is like that. You do have control over your car, right?
Yeah.
A certain amount of control. And I wanted to hit, this is what I was trying to hit on before. You keep on bringing up earlier something like, is it predetermined or do we have free will, right? This is a question I think everybody struggles with. And it's one of the things that leads people away from religion because they don't like the idea of there being something predetermined and them having a lack of control.
We get told all the time we have free will.
Yeah.
Oh, you have free will. You have free will. You have free will. And then everybody then turns around and meets you with, thank God, because this happened, and don't get me wrong. I don't want to sound contradictory to everything I just said about having faith in God, but I'm 100% thankful for God giving me the opportunity to make these choices.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to look at it.
I do have free will, but God has given me this opportunity to be here in this moment.
Yeah.
With these people on this ride for however long,
for some fucking reason,
for freaking eternity, whatever it is, man. Andy, I hope you pop in and listen to this, but you're another one, man. I'm about to pop back in your life, bud.
Yeah, you better watch out. Me too. Anyway, no, but yes, and I'm going to try to make the argument for why both exist. And I really do think this is the truth. This is what I can discern. So we were talking about time earlier and how I don't think it exists. And you seem to agree with that. Do you agree with that idea that time isn't real?
Yeah. Time's just another way, I think, that we categorize things.
Yes, exactly, right? It's almost like a form of speech.
Yeah.
It's like a mental form of speech.
I think time, obviously, like I was saying earlier, time is all relative. It's 9 o'clock at night, as long as you're looking at the clock. Don't look at the clock, man, and work's over.
Yeah, and exactly, and you can experience the dilution of time in that way. So that example, I think that's a good way you can experience it in your own lives, listeners, is to try to test that. Like by not looking at the clock and looking at the clock, you'll see that time will dilate and compress. And so anyway, if you accept the idea that time isn't real in the way we think about it, it's not a physical thing, then you have to do away with the idea of the future and the past being physical things, because that's how we think about them, right? If the future and the past don't exist, if it's a product, an illusion of sorts because of the illusion of time or the finite space we're placed in, then you have to ask yourself, okay, if I have free will, if now is the only thing that exists and I'm controlling the car, then where I'm going can be fixed without me seeing it in some way, if that makes sense. So the idea is that because we have ability to remember the past, we have ability to discern the future, to see it in some way. And we try to throw out ideas into the future and see if they stick. And then whatever sticks best, we try to follow. And we think that's a predetermined path in some way, right? But that is an illusion as well. So what I'm trying to argue for is that you can have a set path, something like God or the universe creates you with a certain elemental base is the best way you could describe it. You're a certain thing that is created for a certain purpose. That purpose is kind of outlined in your DNA, in your structure, in your soul. And what you have to do is figure out a way to align the physical being to the frequency of the soul. So that, yes, it is predetermined, but you have control over whether you align with it. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I don't think that there's like even, and I think what I'm catching is like you have a predetermined destination, but how you get there is not laid out. I don't necessarily. I think that the destination's always changing. I think that it's all relative. It's all what you're creating. So and this is where I tie everything back. There's a lot of common themes I keep coming back to, but the law of attraction. Yeah. If what I'm putting out is my reality, and that reality just hasn't come into fruition yet. It hasn't been. It hasn't. It's not there yet. Yeah. But it's already predetermined in quotes. But it's it's always changing with the energy I'm putting out.
Yes, exactly. And not only the energy you're intentionally putting out, but the energy from the things you haven't settled inside of yourself, which is the part that messes people up. It's like, why don't I have what I want? Well, the reason why is because there's a lot of shit that's keeping you don't see. Yeah.
Those are as real.
Yes.
Again, call it by whatever name you want, but growing up in a Catholic home and being Catholic and being confirmed. Yeah. Those are demons. Those are real physical or real tangible things. Those things that determine, the battles, the heartaches that we carry with us are
demons.
Those are the chains.
Yeah.
Those are the chains dragging us down.
We own them like we own everything else.
Exactly. Yeah. So now back to what we're saying is, going the direction we're headed or headed to our destination, if we're carrying those demons, we're carrying those chains, we're carrying the bad juju or the bad energy, the bad karma, it's going to spew over on other people, and now that affects other people's journey to their destination. But it's all something we're in control of.
Something you can pick up on by looking at people too, and this is interesting. I think that magnetism, in the way that certain people get obsessed with certain people, right? And you can experience this, like think back into a high school party where there was that one individual that everybody gravitated towards. You know what I mean? And you're like, why the hell? They maybe were like the most attractive person, but they're like the person everybody wants to be around. I think it's something like when you start to do what you're talking about, sort through those chains, sort through those demons, or even if you haven't sorted through all of them, but at least they're there, you recognize them. So there's something about the recognition that you actually demonstrate at a physical level in the way you look.
And just address them. And you can address them by any way. You can say, man, like the other night on location I was telling you, we just had there was some bad energy in the air. There was all these little bad omens and stuff, and I looked at my engineer and told him, "Hey man, we all got there's something going on tonight." And he's like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, I didn't know how to put it because I didn't want him to think like, "Man, Shane's a kook," which he already thought. But he's like, "Well, shut up, don't talk about it." Well, that's how he wanted to deal with it.
Hide
was
from
to
it.
not.
That's how most people react.
Not deal with it. And man, to me, that's scary. I don't want to walk when you walk outside. I don't know who can all relate to this, but you walk outside and it's 20 degrees and it's pitch black and there's no light on the porta potty. The porta potty's 50 yards away. Man, I'll tell you what, you sometimes get the heebie-jeebies, feel like the boogeyman's out.
Well,
but
those aren't
people feel that energy and they want to turn and run. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Continue.
But they want to turn and run from it sometimes, or they feel that energy and I'm a little scared. I'm going to flick the light on.
Yeah.
But to me, I look at that bad energy as something as tangible as a demon, or as something as tangible as the devil himself, or the just bad spirits, bad,
what goes
whatever. Maybe it's the curse location. Yeah. Maybe it's the boogeyman.
And why do you turn the light on?
Yeah, why don't you just stare right in the face?
Why doesn't it ever stay dark when you turn the light on?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But you know what, though? You still get that imprint in your eyes. When you turn that light on, you still see those shadows.
The outline.
So sometimes I think if you just address that they're there, maybe just because they feel uncomfortable, maybe it's not evil you're dealing with. Maybe you're dealing with something in yourself, or you're dealing with an insecurity or a doubt, or maybe you're dealing with the bad energy. Like we said, somebody's about to get hurt or something.
These are outlined things in the paranormal world, at least. What you're describing,
those are the strings.
Will be similar to what's called a poltergeist, which is in paranormal world, it's the idea that people do put out. We are receivers, right? Well, basically, what we are is like a you can think of us as a radio receiver, but also a broadcaster. So we receive energy and we broadcast it out. And one of the things that can happen if you get overcharged, or you get something like that, where you have kind of a chain that's grown outsized that you've ignored for too long and has been chasing you around for years and years and years, it can actually start to manifest in a physical way, because that energy is something like it's rebounding off of you, and you are doing it. It's the weirdest thing. Like you are actually manifesting that.
That's
in a
like
way.
When you said you can see it in people. You see those people that you work with, or those people you go to school with, or those people that you're like at the gas station. You see them like hissing and growling at the cashier, and you're like, God, what the heck? Like
that is possession. Those are what it looks like.
Yeah, those are those. Exactly, man.
That's what it looks like.
Don't get your blinders up and pretend that that's not what it is. When you're seeing the ugly side in people, that toxic side of people, that might be what you're dealing with.
That is what you're dealing with. Insanity is something like the loss of control or total possession. The total possession of something that we could identify as, that in Christianity we identify as Satan, but in many other religions they'd identify as the darkness, or any of these kind of entities that when anthropomorphized embody like something like fear and despair and kind of that dark pit, hell itself, right? That is the same thing throughout history. We're talking about the same thing. We're just labeling them different things. Yeah. And that energy is something that when people feel it, it's such an uncomfortable thing. You keyed in on like the heebie-jeebies. You said the heebie-jeebies. And
yeah, because you feel it.
Because that is not just, people always write that off as like, oh, I got the chills. Whenever I'm getting downloads from my guides, right? Which, as I've talked about before, guys, like this is as real as the table I'm hitting right now. And I know it may sound crazy for me to say that, but I get direction directly from things that are not on this plane, right? When that's happening, most of the time when I'm resonating properly, that's how it manifests, is through this something. It feels something like being hooked up to a battery, and you get this energy overload, and your hair will stand up everywhere on your body.
And somebody's peeking over your shoulder.
Yes, there's an energy to it. That energy you'll experience in many different forms. It'll change forms depending on what kind of energy you're feeling. So like, let's say you're feeling something that's of a higher vibration, it's going to feel warm. It's going to kind of feel comforting.
Or euphoric.
Euphoric. If you feel something and your vision kind of widens, it's like the whole world gets brighter.
Everything's HD now.
Yes. But when you feel the other one, it feels something like cold, something like shiver, something like I want to close my eyes and hide from everything. And that is the natural default reaction. The funniest thing in what you pointed out there is the way to make those go away is to look at them. That's why we turn the lights on. They go away when you turn the lights on. Yeah. So as a metaphor,
address them for what they are.
Yes.
Hey, I'm feeling this.
They only have power when you turn away from them.
What do I need to be taking in right now? Do I need to take a second and reflect?
Yeah.
On myself? Do I need to look around and make sure I don't walk out into traffic? Am I getting a bad energy there?
Yeah.
Am I headed in the wrong direction? Am I hanging out with the wrong people? Am I having the wrong conversations?
Am I watching the wrong stuff and consuming the wrong information?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Am I wasting my time? Yeah, like all that, man.
Rogan talks about that all the time, right? Bandwidth.
Yeah.
It's like, and that is, I love the way he puts it. It's more of a secular perspective, but I think that is true. It's something like what you devote your time to is what you become.
Oh, and again, there's that law of attraction.
Yes.
It's what you're taking in is what you're going to become. What you're spitting out is it's real.
And you do have control to choose that path. The fundamental control you have is something like whether you allow the fundamental right or left, the fundamental light or dark, the fundamental up or down to take control. Yeah. That is, you choose that. Yeah. And you channel either of those. And what you were describing in the dark side with those people that you see on the streets that are just like literally like hissing and spitting and all this kind of shit is seeing the people that have chosen that.
Or have been hurt.
To a point where they didn't know they were choosing that.
Yes.
Exactly. You can, and that's why there's an association with the devil and the trickster. Is you fall into this path without knowing that's what you're choosing.
Yeah, the greatest thing the devil ever did was convince everybody he doesn't exist.
Yes. Well, and there's the thing too. We need to key on this point because you said it right there. It's not proper to think about these things as evil. Because I just talked about that last episode, right? Setting evil in the proper context is that if we do the thought experiment, at least if we keep it in the Western Christian interpretation, because that's what we're familiar with, right? That the story of the fall of Lucifer isn't in the Bible, but this is most Catholicism embraces it. That Lucifer was the highest angel in God's God's angels, his favored son. Yes, he was also associated with the logical mind, with beauty, with something like cunning, right? With all of these qualities, but people usually associate the fall with something like Satan himself becoming obsessed with himself and then thinking that he's the thing that can discern whether human beings should exist, and then challenging the fact that God created human beings and this causing God to cast him out, right? But I think that is the proper way to think about it. But I came across something last week that I think really resonated, and it's something like we don't think about it properly, because what that does is it raises Satan or Lucifer to the same level as God.
To an equal plane, yeah. And
God created Lucifer, right? So in that interpretation, we're raising them to the same plane, and that's actually giving an illusion of this similar power. So that when people think about evil, they think about it in equal terms to light, as if there's this eternal battle, struggle between the dark and the light, as if it isn't intended. And this is the point I'm getting to, is God does control everything. Everything comes from a single source. So that if evil and darkness exists in this world, it's there for a reason. And in a very weird way, it is God acting. But it's God acting, and it's the way that God gets people off their fucking ass. Is poke you in exactly where you don't want to be poked.
Oh, it's those challenges. Yes. Those challenges. That's every
whatever will make you unravel. That's where he'll poke you.
Yeah, my dad works with. I'll just simplify it, but he works with people that come from typically rougher upbringings, and maybe some people just got out of jail or just trying to get on the right path and find their way towards a career. And whenever he comes across somebody who's really walking in there carrying their sadness or their guilt, or carrying these demons and these chains, or an ego, my dad makes it his goal. He makes it as, he takes it as an opportunity to, change their life and talk to them about God, or just tell them, look, forgive yourself, chill out,
put down the weight.
Yeah. Put down the weight. Yeah. You're on the up and up. You're doing it.
Yeah.
Right now you're here. It's like walking into the gym every day, busting your ass and never putting on a tank top to show off your muscles. Yeah. Like, dude,
you're working hard.
You're already doing it.
Give yourself
exactly.
And it's also why it's very important to not do things for people, right? Is that oftentimes, and this is when you're in the opposite position, when people are in hard places, when they're in that darkness, when they're in that struggling, what they're going to do a lot of times is similar to when they're drowning. It's a similar feeling, is they're going to try to find
Misery loves
anything to
company.
hold them up, right?
Misery
And so
loves
they'll
company.
try to pull you down with them, right? They will. They're in pain, so they're going to lash out, right? And if you are the person that runs up there and tries to save them without being smart and being like, hey, I'm not going to die for you,
Yeah.
then you will go under with them, right? And God's not going to save you from that because you're choosing that. Right?
Yeah.
Right? He didn't put you here to save anybody else, but he did put you here to lead by example, to live your highest version of yourself. Exactly what I think you're describing in your dad is like, look, like you were saying, I see in you things that I've had to go through.
Yeah.
Right? I've seen in you the same kind of struggle, that same fundamental thing of carrying a weight, and I've put it down, right? I'm not telling you got to believe in whatever I believe in or whatever it is, but simply by being here, man, give yourself the fucking credit.
Yeah. I think,
You know what I mean?
and I think that's where these relationships are built too, though. Back to what we were saying is, oops, messing up with the mic. You know, we come across these people at these same crossroads with us or places we've been.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like
You see it.
sometimes you have an opportunity to be like the elder and
Yeah.
hand out some good advice or
Yes.
give somebody a hand up or a leg up. Sometimes
Reverse.
you've been there and all you just need to be is just a person to walk through it with that person, you know, or
The true you.
or
Yeah.
the person to identify it in somebody, or just the person that just walks by. I mean, I think that we all have those roles and those goals as we come into somebody's life for a moment or a chapter or for eternity. I think that kind of back to what you and I were saying about how we met. We were both walking through some shit, and all of a sudden we were best friends.
Yeah.
Doing beer bongs in the garage with TJ and Jamie.
We were living life like fast and hard right there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I do think there's something, I value those times because of that. You know, I'm at a point in my life now, and I think we were just talking about this earlier today, where it's something like, you know, we've grown up, right? And I think there's something about recognizing that I have allowed myself to go and live that really dangerous life, right? Like do some stupid shit, and to kind of allow that animal thing to come out and let it go play and let it possess me a little bit and all that stuff. Because what you'll find if you let it play for long enough is it's exhausting. It doesn't. It's so unbalanced that it'll cause inside of you something like a fracturing.
It's weird how being so much more productive, and I think that that's all relative to what you're into and where you're trying to go, but being so much more productive, how much more energy I have mentally, man, not just physically. I'm not, you know, I'm probably getting less sleep, but I'm so energized just mentally and spiritually, and I'm laughing and joking and smiling, and oh my God, these creases that have been all over my face, they're changing.
going away.
They're changing.
Isn't it crazy how the physical appearance changes?
And I'm using great skincare products.
Not a sponsor yet.
Great skincare products. So
we need a man's skincare product line. That's what we need to create.
That's
I
it.
think we could do it.
Real.
Yeah. Real man's
Real.
skincare products.
Yeah.
But yes, on a more serious note, you know, I think that there's something about recognizing that the things that you carry around, those weights, once you put them down, that they actually are the things that you stand on then. That once you put their weights, they form something like a stable foundation on which the higher version of you is able to rest.
Oh, yeah. Fall forward.
Yep.
Always fall forward.
Yeah.
Just keep building it up.
And from that, you have a higher vantage point. And from that higher vantage point, you get a higher level of energy. You get something like a reinvigoration.
Yeah.
And
it's the same way, like we look back at ourselves and we're like, man, I was so stupid. Man, why did I say that to that girl? Yeah. Oh my gosh. She probably thinks I'm a nerd.
Yeah.
You know, and it's all that stuff. And
then the pain of seeing it happen still. That's the thing, is that the battle's never over, right? That there is no finish line in this life. So that once you're at that vantage point, you automatically see that there's a higher one, and you're like, shit.
Yeah.
Now I got to get there. Kind of a thing, you know what I mean? So it's like this process of recognizing that you are the thing that holds you back, and you are the thing that raises you up. And that once you see what you can stand on, what raises you up is what makes you hurt. then what you look for is what makes you hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's what takes the power away from those demons. It takes those chains start to fall away, because you're the thing that's sitting there not only looking at it, but have your fucking shield and your armor, and you're like, nah, motherfucker, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
And the next one that comes, hey, let's have a bigger fight, because that was boring this time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's what you're describing in the gym. Like, that's the energy we're embodying there, is like that animal. I got my fucking harness on that now, and I'm gonna ride that thing.
Yeah.
I control you, not anything else, right? And I'm gonna let you out. I'm gonna let you out in a vector, in a direction, at those weights.
Yeah, and I think that what you're describing there is like what we were talking about. This physical chapter, this physical page turning. It's not just like, oh, new level. You know, it's not like that.
No.
I didn't just level 2. No, it's as physical as being in a battle.
Yeah.
And this is what I've been feeling,
That's
man. Is I've been feeling like freaking hardened, and I feel like God is just, giving me this. I mean, man, just giving me this strength on the outside, on the inside, giving me this energy to wake up.
Yeah. And
freaking, you were having trouble waking up at 6. Well, now you got to wake up at 4:30 every day. Now you got to wake up at 3:30 every day.
Poke.
Oh, and you got more to do. You got more to do, and you got more on your plate, more stress, more frustration. And are you going to let it bring you down?
Because you demonstrated you could handle less. So I know you can handle more. Here you go. Yeah, and you get it right away. That's how you level up, is by getting, you automatically have it.
Very much so. Yeah. And I think that if you take a second, when you feel these moments in your life, like, man, who's this person that's being brought back into my life? Why am I feeling this? And it's always in a point of so much uncertainty. Like, man, where am I going? Wait, why does this feel so familiar to me?
Yeah, deja
like,
vu.
God, I have hurt like this before, but this is different. It's those moments of familiarity that you gotta look and be like, what did I improve on? What is God getting me ready for?
Yeah.
What? And that's how
that alignment. That's that higher kind of road I was talking about. That it exists. It's there. But you have to choose to go that route. Yeah.
It hurts, and I use this. I told my dad. My dad called me not too long ago, and he asked me how I was doing. I told him, I said, Dad, I was depressed. I was real depressed a couple months ago. I said, I don't really care to talk about it right now. And that's kind of been what I've been going through right now, is I've been having a lot of people ask me, Shane, how are you doing? I don't really care to tell you how I'm doing, because if I tell you how I'm doing, I'm going to have to kind of reflect on what I've just what was so exhausting, and what I've kind of just been starting to overcome. So instead, I was depressed, and now I'm driven as fuck. And it hurt, but just like it hurts when you start working out, you start to build those calluses. And once, you don't want to become hard and jaded, but you want to become ready for whatever God's about to lay in front of you.
Yep.
And
because something's coming.
Yeah, you got to embrace it. You got to embrace it and look for it. But don't sit back and, well, I'm getting beat down.
There's no sitting still.
No.
There's no sitting still.
Because these moments of familiarity, these moments that God puts people back into your life and gives you an opportunity to succeed, you need to freaking jump at it, and you need to be aware of it.
We are here to move things fundamentally.
Yeah.
We are not here to sit and just consume. We are not the thing that's supposed to just be here for comfort. I truly believe that. It's something like our modern society is confused at this level. We have been so disconnected from the fundamental suffering in life in the Western world that we have this belief, a large group of people believe, that the way that we get to happiness and fulfillment or success, as we've cut out God, the only way we do it is through comfort. It's through something like consuming shit. And I've found that when I tried to apply that in my life, where that took me was something like a deep spiral down into hell. Right? And because it's something like an unfulfilling kind of consumption, that gluttonous consumption that just grows.
Yeah, you're just a cog. That's how you start to feel like you're just a cog, or just a number, or just an assembly line, or just waking up and dying and waking up and dying and waking up and dying.
Why am I here? And why does that question come in then?
Why?
Yeah.
Why? Yeah. Just go against the flow.
The point? Yeah.
Man, if your back's hurting, stand up.
Yep. Pick up your weight.
Freaking Stop saying, oh, I used to do this. I catch myself saying, oh, I used to do this. I used to be this. Mm-hmm. Fuck you. I'm dangerous now.
Yeah. No, I am better now.
Yeah.
I am who I am now
I'm
because
dangerous
of that.
now.
Exactly right. Yeah, and there's a certain amount also, a key point I think we should hit on here is going back to kind of bullshitters, is that there's something about recognizing, Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot, that it's important for us to recognize that we are the thing that is the most dangerous thing in the universe. There is nothing more dangerous than a human being. Nothing.
Sorry, I was leaning. I was falling out of my chair. And there's nothing more dangerous to ourselves than ourselves.
Exactly right, and that's why we are the most dangerous thing to ourselves. The individual really is. A misled individual thinking that they are a thing that is here for comfort is something like the most dangerous thing, that the expression of the human being that I've seen so far in my experience. And what scares me about where we're going, and the reason why I've been a little bit ominous in the previous episodes and said like, hey guys, we need to prepare for something, that there's a grander call for us to prepare for a certain type of suffering, is because the universe operates at a fundamental level in balance. And what I see is something like people, when they don't move, we are the thing that maintains the balance, so that if there is a large group of people that aren't moving or don't want to move or don't want to do anything, then what we're headed for is something like a degradation, entropy taking place, suffering, chaos, all of the things associated with that.
It makes you vulnerable.
But also, in that, we have the calling out of all of those people too. God acting, get off your ass, stand up, become the real you, become who you're always supposed to be. And you know that shit. Everybody knows that inside. You know what I mean? But we play this funny game with our ego, as if we're the thing that we know we're the thing that's supposed to reach for this higher purpose, but we wish and we wish and we wish and we wish and we do nothing for it. We don't pick up the responsibility of it, and then we blame other people, oddly enough, for keeping us from our dreams, right? And there's nobody ever keeping you from your dreams than you. It's
you have to own everything you consume, everything you put out, everything. You have to own that and be honest with yourself, because you could sit there and like, man, I'm telling you, I just recently have overcome insecurities and things that I've been carrying with me for years.
Yeah.
Years. To a point where there was things that I was carrying with me that I carried around losing them, or I carried around how, the impact of experiencing that thing or that time in my life for almost as long as it took for me to achieve those or to be in that moment, or, and it's just wild, man. You have to address that stuff. Don't carry this stuff with, and I keep saying stuff, but that's all it is just stuff.
It's meaningless baggage.
Weight, and literally, man, things and people and interactions will try to consume your time, but if you just flip the script, take control of it, it's like everything just clears up.
Yeah. You take control of what you can control, then you realize the things that you worry about are the things that are actually pulling you apart, because you can't control them. So they cause you to spiral. They cause you to think in circles, and then to kind of devolve in a way where you lash out at people because you're projecting this kind of internal battle that you have going on. And that another thing that I think we should key on here too is something like that pain itself, when not viewed properly, when not looked at, like you're saying, in that warrior context, where we're turning around at our demons, we're saying, hey, I see you, and if you want to fight, let's fight, kind of a thing. But I'm not going to have you follow me around anymore. I'm not going to have you leech off of me anymore. That when you do that, you keep yourself from passing that thing on to somebody else.
Yeah.
Because the way that these things travel,
you're missing an opportunity.
Is by us lashing out.
Yep.
Is by us allowing that thing to take hold, possess us, and then to seep itself into somebody else through that expression, through that exchange of energy, through that I hate you, whatever it is, right?
And it doesn't even have to be aggressive like that, but it could be a inaction, like failure to act, failure to do something, animosity, insecurities,
all of those.
If you can, those types of feeling, it's no mistake that those are the same feelings you get when you get the heebie-jeebies. That weak, shoulders hunched.
Good point. Yeah.
how did Quasimodo look at the beginning of that movie, and how did he look at the end of the movie?
Yeah.
Hunchback and all, he was standing up tall by the end of that movie, you know? But it's, if you carry those weights, you carry that insecurity with you, and you carry doubts, and you carry questions, and just if you put yourself out there to change your situation, or if you put yourself out there to make a positive, man, that beat when it drops. If you put your intention on impacting somebody's life for good,
to be that thing,
the
higher thing,
it feels so different.
To be the hero,
it's weird, man.
Yeah, to be that hero in a very small way.
Yeah,
it doesn't make it. When I say small, I don't mean insignificant. I mean the most significant. That the most significant acts are those small ones that nobody fucking sees.
Yeah. That cilantro on a street taco.
Yeah,
pow.
Exactly. It's the garnish of life. Yeah, it's a really good way to put it. And because it is where you will find, oddly enough, that you find the most beauty in the smallest, simplest acts, the smallest things, the simplest views. That there's an odd way in which simplicity demonstrates to you the comedy within life. That what we often do is overcomplicate this thing, because our logical mind is insatiable in some way. It's ravenous, and we want to let it control. It's addictive to let our logical mind control things. We let it run around, and we let it create these schemes and scenarios.
Well,
that can grow.
It's like a muscle. It's like a muscle. It's like a crease, or it's like driving that go-kart through the freaking sand.
Yeah,
you know, you're putting a trail.
Yeah.
You're building a trail. It's like walking through the high grass, and you walk through it once. It's a little bit of a trail, but you keep going. You keep going off the trail, and you walk back down that trail and look back, and then take the scenic route again and again and again. Pretty soon that path is the path that you've made for yourself. It's the path of least resistance, which is why.
That's what you'll take then.
Which is why, that's why people are going to go that way. You know, you get in a rut. Once that rut is bigger than the trail you were on, that's where you're headed. You're headed in a different stream.
Yeah, a tree falls on the trail, and you're like, where do I go?
Yeah. There's no getting back on track at that point. Or I should not say there's no getting back on track. I'm saying it's a little, it's a little rougher of a ride. A little more bumps and bruises.
Well, and that's the point of it too, though. Oh my gosh! Sorry, guys. Give me 1 second. I keep on pulling my headphones out.
Chris is having technical difficulties. He got excited. He was actually sitting on his legs.
I gotta say this. No, what I was gonna say is like those paths too. I mean, that's when we're most comfortable, because that's when we know we've been there and nothing's hurt us. So we repeat it and we're like, oh, we're safe here. We're safe here. We're safe here. We just keep going this way. But that's also where we lose the adventure. You know what I mean? The adventure that's within life. Real quick before we get out of here, I'm going to pull a card and we're going to see what it means.
Just so you know, when he pulled these cards out, because I've been raised Roman Catholic, and I've been kind of always taught that like astrology is one of the tools of the devil, but I don't know. It's kind of interesting to see just kind of the similarities in the way so many different ideas relate, and how they're all kind of, I don't know. It's kind of interesting. So I'm interested to see what this card entails.
So the card that I pulled out here, guys, is the Six of Pentacles, and I am by no means a professional tarot reader, but I am familiar with the cards. And what I get from the Six of Pentacles, on this card, you'll see kind of one man standing up and then two people on the side of them on their knees, kind of holding their hands out, and the man's handing out coins. And he's also holding a scale in the other one, like he's judging these people. But the way that I'm seeing this card right now is something like balance. And I'm seeing the man as the universe, as God. That the way that you receive from the universe is by maintaining a certain type of balance, right? I think this is what we've been talking about in the podcast. That inside of us, each of us, there's a necessity to maintain this balance. And that's something like a balance between the light and the dark, up and down, left to right. You choose. But the abundance, the happiness, the fulfillment, the payoff that you look for, it only happens through maintaining that balance, right? And with that, guys, I think that's the Unfounded Podcast. I want to take a second and really thank Shane because this was fantastic. I enjoyed it. I think this is going to be awesome listening back.
Yeah,
so
I'm excited to check
you.
this out, and I hope that we can come back and actually finish telling people the way we became friends. There's more to it. There's plenty of stories on that, so it'll be interesting to kind of to see where this year takes us and kind of see the direction both of us are headed and why we kind of bumped back into each other this year.
Yeah. You'll be back. I definitely want you back on here, and we're talking about other ideas too, guys. So tune in.
And we live like 3 minutes from each other right now, so that's kind of definitely put. He's now my gym buddy and my accountability partner, so there's that too.
Yeah. So with that, guys, that's going to be the Unfounded Podcast. Signing off. I want to send you guys a whole lot of love, a whole lot of light. Real quick, Shane, do you have your Instagram and stuff that you can shout out?
Yeah. So my Instagram is hitchin_and_fishing with no G. And my TikTok is Dirty Downturn Boys because we just went through a pretty epic downturn in the oil field. So check it out. We got a lot of funny videos on there.
Yeah, seriously, guys, check him out. He's been showing me some of the TikToks he's putting out, and they're fantastic and hilarious. And he's even got a couple of me on there. So if you guys are interested, check out his TikTok, check out his Instagram, and like I said, tune back in because Shane will be back on here very soon. And thank you for your support. Please reach out, like, share, and subscribe if you think this would resonate with anybody. If this really resonated with you, please give it to somebody and see if they like it. Right. So with that, guys, lots of love. Night night.